Hi, I'm Dick Kreider, and I'm here again today with Mark Steiner, the developer of Discipleland Curriculum. And Mark, I'm ready to ask you a few more questions. And in particular, I'd like us to talk a little bit about what distinguishes Discipleland from all of the other products that are available in the market. And one of the things that I've heard repeated frequently is that Discipleland has this children's discipleship system. Could you take a few minutes to explain that to me?
Sure, Dick. All of the emphasis that we have on a system really comes down to three different focus points: knowledge, character, and conduct. We want to help kids know God intimately. So there's a knowledge component, a head component. In addition to that, we want to make sure that it's not all head knowledge, but kids are able to also have a heart effect. So the affective side of education, so that the kids are learning with their heads as well as with their heart, character-based stuff. And then finally, now they're not just learning information, but they're also putting it into practice, so the conduct. We want kids, by the time it's all said and done, we want kids to know God intimately, to love Him passionately, and to serve Him selflessly.
And I don't think I've ever heard that articulated quite like that from other publishers. And so my guess is, as we talk more about this, you're going to reveal that that really is a very strong distinctive in the Discipleland curriculum.
Right. Discipleland is much more balanced as an overall approach to what kids need. I could go back a long way and talk about how at Dallas Seminary, one of my professors, Howard Hendricks, was instrumentally involved in helping his students realize that discipleship is a way of life. It's not just a few things you learn or a few things you practice or a few disciplines you do. It's a way of life.
That's great. Some of the things I've appreciated personally about Discipleland that differentiates it from other curriculum is the fact that there is no repeat of any Bible lesson for 4 years of preschool and 6 years of elementary. And I assume that was by design. Am I right?
Yes, we didn't want kids to say, hey, I already studied that last week in our Sunday school or in our kids' church or in our midweek ministry. The design is that kids will get a thorough, wide foundation.
Okay, that's kind of what I thought. And the other distinguishing thing that I've noticed in the curriculum as well is that Bibles are required. A teacher cannot pick up a teacher guide and not even open their Bible, because you don't print any scripture text in teacher guides and student books. And I'm assuming that the design of that was simply so that they had to get into their Bibles?
We want kids to know their Bibles and to open it every week, to become self-feeders, as we say. One of the other features of that is that you can use any translation, whether it's a King James Bible or
yes, okay,
any of the others that are currently out there. Kids can use whatever Bible they bring to church with them in Discipleland.
So you don't recommend a translation in your curriculum itself?
We just recommend that they bring a Bible and use a Bible.
Excellent. What would you say would be the percentage of the actual Bible that a kid in the core Bible is actually going to read and study in 6 years?
From 1st through 6th grade, kids are going to have about a 50% exposure. So they will have read and studied 50% of the Bible by the time they complete 6th grade.
And that's going to be a combination of the in-class work and the disciple zoned material?
That's correct. For each of the lessons, we recommend what I'll call pre-work or homework, so that kids can read the passage the week before, and when they come to class, they've already read the Bible passage. We call that sword work.
And does that sword work always have a connection with the coming lesson?
For grades 3 through 6, yes. For 1st and 2nd grade, it may not be as directly related to the lesson.
All right. One of the other things that I've noticed about Discipleland is that it's undated. You don't see dates on the fronts of the teacher guides, nor do you see dates within each of the individual lessons, and I'm assuming that that was done with a purpose in mind.
We want Discipleland to be very flexible, so teachers, churches can use it whenever they want.
So is everything in stock all the time?
Yes. All of Discipleland's core Bible and preschool and kindergarten resources are perpetually available.
And do I have to start with any particular quarter or unit? Or can I start any place I want to, if I wanted to?
It's pretty open-ended. You can. The flexibility gives you the opportunity to say, we want to study the book of Acts now.
Oh, okay.
We're in that section for the next 3 quarters. or you can start almost anywhere you want, depending on your age level of kids and the time frame that you have.
All right, that's great. Mark, we've mentioned the term Core Bible a number of times. And what was it that caused you to choose that terminology for the elementary material?
We wanted to make sure that people understand that the Bible was the center of everything that happens in Discipleland, but specifically grades 1 through 6.
And I know that in light of that, that you really want kids to develop a biblical worldview. Can you tell me how you do that and why you do it?
We want to include missions so kids realize that their little limited world they live in the 21st century is only a small piece of what God's big picture
Sure.
Activities are in the world. So world missions is an important element as part of Core Bible.
And how do you incorporate that into a lesson then?
We include biographies. We also have a segment where kids are learning about people groups around the world. And then third, a missions education component, so kids will realize what God's heart for missions is and why God calls people to serve Him in various capacities throughout their
Now,
lifetimes.
you said biographies of
Of missionaries,
Oh, okay.
people that people have known went to serve in China or went to serve in Africa or anywhere else. They're some of the standard classical men and women who serve God in remote places, but also places that were prominent.
It's in this element on the missions, emphasis on missionaries, is something that is really distinct to Discipleland, because I don't remember any other publisher incorporating an emphasis on a regular basis on missions. Is that pretty true?
Right. Usually, if there's any missions emphasis at all, it's tacked on the end, or else it's a 2 or 3 week segment.
Okay. And about how much time do you spend on missions, say, in a given lesson, would you think?
That's a flexible factor also. Teachers can spend just a couple of minutes on the missionary biography, or they can spend 10 to 15 or 20 minutes of every lesson focusing on what God's doing around the world.
I'm curious, now, could they do this in one big chunk instead of having to do it or doing it every week? Would it be appropriate to combine some of these pieces of a biography of missionary, maybe do them every 3 or 4 weeks so the kids get a big picture?
That would be easily done, yes.
Oh, okay. All right, good. Now, you mentioned something else about a missions education. Is that in the teacher guide or is that someplace else?
It's in the teacher guide as well as in what we call Disciple Zone, which is a website designed for teachers, parents, and kids to be able to supplement what they learn in the class at home. There are 5 or so other aspects of education that we include on Disciple Zone.
And is there anything on discipleland.com in that download section that you guys have?
Teachers can download the biographies. They can download a lot of other resources that will supplement Core Bible. When you think of the missions component, the worldview component of Core Bible, it's really a curriculum within a curriculum.
All right, that's great. One in particular that I'd like to talk about briefly here is the fact that we have a review celebration, which to my knowledge is very unique in our curriculum, where at the end of every unit, that 13th lesson is an actual review of what the kids have been studying during the quarter. And in Core Bible, how do we handle that?
What we want kids to do is to have an opportunity to review everything they've learned during the whole quarter, all 12 weeks, and have fun doing it. So we call it a review celebration that gives teachers an opportunity to find out how much their kids have really learned, but kids also the chance to have fun and review what they've learned, have some contests and games together. And it also effectively gives a 13th lesson for every quarter.
So you really want it to be a celebration for the kids?
Oh, we do. In fact, Dick, I know you as a 4th grade teacher the last several years of Discipleland have done that often with your kids.
My kids at my church, they love the review celebration, but strangely enough, they like it when I do it as a test. Now, I've done it using Discipleland Baseball, I've done it as Discipleland Jeopardy, but the strangest thing for me is they love it when I actually hand them an 80-question essay-type test. We do some weird things, though. We have bells they can ring when they have the right answer, and they can blow noisemakers to disturb all the adults in our church. We add up the points at the end, and we have a grand prize winner. And one of the funny stories is I had made that commitment to my class that whoever was the grand prize winner could pick a place I would take them to that place. So we did the review celebration. And Mark, I actually asked all of the class 320 review questions for the whole year for all of level
Wow.
4. And I had one of my students that answered 318 questions correctly and quoted all 40 scripture verses. So unfortunately, when I asked him where he wanted to go, he answered the Daytona 500 race. So guess what I did? I took a kid to the Daytona 500, and you won't believe this. At lap 35, he looked at me and said, "How long do we have to stay?" So we're staying for 200 more laps. But my kids love that review celebration because they know it's going to be a big deal in my class.
That's a great motivation for the kids to continue.
It is, because they like spending Mr. Dick's money. You know, one of the things too that I appreciate is the fact that because we're undated in our material, that we can reuse the teacher guides and the teaching pictures. Do very many churches actually do that?
Many do, and they appreciate it because, of course, it cuts costs. They don't ever have to buy teacher guides again or the teaching pictures again, and that cuts the budget, depending on their class size, dramatically.
So once they have those, then they only have to repurchase the student pages, the disciple guide pages.
That's right.
Oh, that's great. That uniqueness, I'm sure, will be appealing to a lot of churches.